Besten Dank. תודה רבה. שכיח. ברוכים הבאים. אני מאחוריך. אני רוצה שתהיה קדימה. Morning, good morning. Oh, Rabbi Yaakov, yeah, welcome back. We missed you. And Rabbi Moshe also. No, I'm just saying we missed you. You're back. Okay. And my second grade teacher comes back for the third time. He wants to make sure that that I don't deviate and I behave. So, thank you. You taking attendance? Okay. Second grade of Holy Torah. Yeah, second grade.
No, not me, just looking.
You're not responsible, you're saying. You don't take responsibility for me. Okay, good morning, everybody. Today, Baruch Hashem, we have the schus to begin a new Mammar. Before we begin, today's class is dedicated by our dear friend Reb Moshe Aaron and Miriam Landy as a schus for their children, Baruch, Ahuva, Shmuel, Menachem, Feigi, Chaya, Bela, and Avraham Chaim. For bracha and atzlocha and arichas yamim v'shanim toivus and all the blessings, begashem uberuach b'toiv hanirav hanigla. With serenity and joy, amen. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so I want to thank Nehemiah Kaplan for the beautiful copies of the Mammar, as always. Thank you. So nice and readable. They're also available on the yeshiva.net if you want to download them. You could see in the headline of this Mammar, it says, Beis Samach Dalet, Shabbos Parshas Dvorim, Tisha B'Av Nidcha, Hey Tovshin Chav Dalet. So Tovshin Chav Dalet is 1964. So this is a discourse, a Mammar, Chassidus that the Lubavitcher Rebbe said at the Fabrengen. It was Shabbos Parshas Dvorim. And it was on Tisha B'Av. Of course, when Shabbos is on Tisha B'Av, you don't fast. That's why it's called Nidcha. It's pushed off to Sunday. So the fast actually was on the 10th day of Av, Yud Av, as we always do when Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos. And the year was Tovshin Chav Dalet, 1964. So that Shabbos, the Rebbe had a Fabrengen. In the middle of the Fabrengen, he said a Mammar. So that Mammar is actually a Tisha B'Av Mammar. And it's extremely profound Mammar. Very, very deep. It's one of the very powerful and deep Maimarim of the Rebbe and of Chassidus B'chlal. And it's based, as he's going to explain, it's based on a Mammar that was said 50 years earlier, on the same date. 50 years earlier by the Rebbe Rashab. The fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe was the Rebbe Rashab, Reb Shalom Ber. And 50 years before 1964 is 1914. Tov Reish Ayin Dalet. Tov Reish Ayin Dalet, the 50th anniversary, right? Ayin Dalet is Pei Dalet, Tzadik Dalet, Shin Dalet, Yud Dalet, Chav Dalet. 1914 to 1964. 50 years. So this was the 50th anniversary, so to speak, of the Mammar. That year, 1914, Tisha B'Av also fell out on Shabbos. And the Rebbe Rashab said a Mammar. Now, those who are a little bit familiar with his Maimarim, one of his magnum opus is called Hemshech Tov Reish Ayin Beis. Hemshech Tov Reish Ayin Beis means a series of Maimarim that he began saying in Shavuos, 1912. And it went on for years. It's 3 huge volumes called Tov Reish Ayin Beis. Today it's already many more volumes because they have footnotes. And in that series known as Ayin Beis is 72 because that's when he started the Mammar, Tov Reish Ayin Beis. 2 years later, on Tisha B'Av, he said this Mammar, which is part of that Hemshech. What nobody did realize, they realized it pretty soon later, is that that's the day that the First World War began. Literally, that Tisha B'Av. For those who know a little bit of the history, on June 28th, 1914, the Archduke, what was his name? Ferdinand, Franz Ferdinand, he was the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, because the the king of the Austro-Hungarian Empire didn't have an heir, so his nephew, Ferdinand, was the heir. And he and his wife, Sophia, went on a tour to Serbia, Sarajevo, and they were both murdered, assassinated, by a 19-year-old young fellow eating a tuna sandwich by the name of Gabriel Princip. Talk about what one person can accomplish in the good or in the bad. That created a diplomatic crisis, and a month later, July 28th, which happened to be Hay of Tov Reish Ayin Dalet, Austro-Hungarian Empire declared war on Serbia. That Shabbos, that still wasn't a world war. That was a war between two countries, because he was killed in Serbia. But that Shabbos, Tisha B'Av, a few days later, that's August 1st, 1914, Germany declared war on Russia. So Russia came to the assistance. So this now became a world war. In the next few days, much of the world was engulfed in a war, and this became the World War, which till that point in history was the biggest war ever. More than 20 million people were killed in that war, 20 million wounded in that war. It also affected the Jewish people in unimaginable ways, and it became the catalyst for the Second World War, because Germany never recovered after their defeat. Germany declared war on Russia on Tisha B'Av. So that day, it happened to be that Rebbe Rashab was in a little town in Lubavitch, in Belarus, which soon would be run over by the Germans. And that's why he ran away from Lubavitch. He moved to Rostov. He didn't want to be under the Germans. And he said this Maimer, he said a Maimer that Shabbos. It turned out that this Maimer was literally the day that the war began, which of course is probably the natural scheme of things, one of the greatest or the greatest turning point in history. Because once that war was unleashed, First World War, the Second World War, everything happened as a result of that war. So this Maimer was said that day. 50 years later, on the same day, the Rebbe said this Maimer. But he started it differently. You'll see, he gave it a different beginning. And the Rebbe's Maimer is based on the Rebbe Rashab's Maimer from 50 years earlier. In 1991, the Rebbe edited the Maimer and published it. That was 1964 was before my days, but 91, I remember when it came out, it was a big tumult because it's a very, very profound Maimer. You'll see, it's very, very profound. It's not an easy Maimer to learn. It's extremely complex and nuanced. And it's interesting that this is the Maimer that the Rebbe Rashab said on that day when the war began, the First World War, and it was Tisha B'Av, and the Rebbe also said it on Tisha B'Av. So this Maimer came out, Chamisha Asa B'Av, Tovshin Nun Aleph, 1991. That year, Tisha B'Av was also on Shabbos. 1991, Tisha B'Av was also on Shabbos. So for that year, the Rebbe edited the Maimer, he was Magiyat, and it came out, it was published. Okay, so let's begin. This is the historic background of this Maimer.
Do you have some comment on the timing of that?
Not that I know of. But when he said the Maimer, he mentioned that this is the Maimer that the Rebbe Rashab said, Tov Reish Ayin Dalet, which was also Tisha B'Av Nidcha. The Dibur HaMaschel, though, usually, you know, every Maimer has a Dibur HaMaschel. Dibur HaMaschel means an opening verse, usually. So it's either it's a pasuk, like we just learned, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, yeah, or V'ata Yigdal Makayach Adna, right, or B'Shashe Yikdimu Yisrael. So either a pasuk in Tanakh, or it's a Maimer Chazal in Gemara, sometimes Medrash. That's usually one of the two. Most Dibur HaMaschels of Chabad Chassidus come from the Alter Rebbe. He's the one who, why this pasuk, not that pasuk, right? Megillas Esther, a lot of Maimarim are words from Haman, right? Vayikach Haman, Yaviu Levush Malchus. It's words from the Alter Rebbe's Maimarim that the other Rebbes continued. Very, very seldom that they said a new Dibur HaMaschel, like a new one. This actually is a new Dibur HaMaschel that the Rebbe, because the Rebbe Rashab didn't start with his Dibur HaMaschel. And the words are Keitz Lachoshech. There's going to be an end to darkness. This is a pasuk in Eov. Eov, who went through a lot of darkness in his life, Job. So in chapter 28, Pasuk Gimel, Eov Perek Chav Ches Pasuk Gimel, you could see in footnote number 1, he says, Keitz Sam Lachoshech. There is an end that was placed into the fabric of reality for darkness. Keitz means an end. Sam was placed, Lachoshech. There's an end to the darkness. That's what Eov says in Perek Chav Ches. So the Rebbe says, Keitz Sam Lachoshech. Ve'isa b'medrash. On this, there's an interesting medrash. This medrash is in Parshas Keitz. B'reishis Rabbah Parsha Pei Tes. On the pasuk Vayihi Keitz Shnasayim Yamim, Yosef is in prison, and the butler forgot to help him. He said he's going to help him, but he forgot. At the end of 2 years, Pare has a dream. On this pasuk, the Medrash says this is what the pasuk says in Iyov, Keitz Lachoshech. Darkness has an end. This is man nosan la'olam kama shanim yaseh ba'afela. That's the language of the Medrash. Hashem gave a time to the world. How many years he's going to sit in darkness? There's an end plan. There's going to be an amount of years that it's yaseh means it's going to make ba'afela in darkness, meaning it's going to dwell in darkness. So there's a time that Hashem gave the world. How many years is it going to be consumed ba'afela? Afela is darkness, dense darkness. Huh? And that's the Keitz Lachoshech. And that's what it says, Vayhi Keitz Nasayim Yamim. There comes an end to everything. There was darkness, there comes an end. The Medrash continues, it's also true about Yosef, that there was a time how long he should be in prison. Vayhi Keitz. Once the Keitz comes, he was taken out of prison. Tzemach Tzedek says on this, in his Sefer Orat Torah, also in Parshas Miketz, Shual Derech Mashakasav B'Zoyar, that this is similar to what it says in Zoyar. Ala pasuk, on the famous pasuk in Koheles, L'koil Zman Va'es, L'koil Chayfetz. This is a very, very famous pasuk in Koheles. Koheles, Ecclesiastes, the beginning of chapter 3. Shlomo Melech says, L'koil Zman. There is a season for everything, right? L'koil Zman Va'es, L'koil Chayfetz Tachas HaShamayim. A season is set for everything. There's a time for every experience under heaven. Nothing is outside of that. And then he goes through 14 seasons in the positive and 14 seasons in the negative. Yeah. Shlomo Melech says there's a time for birthing and there's a time for dying. There's a time to plant and there's a time to uproot the plant. So that's already time for birth, a time for death, time to plant, a time to uproot. That's 4, right? 2 positive and 2 in the negative. Eis laroig, there's a time to kill. Eis lirpoid, there's a time for healing. This is the time for healing. Eis lifroitz, there's a time to tear down. Eis livnois, there's a time to build. These are times. There's a time where building is the wrong thing. Now it's time to destroy. And there's a time to build. Eis livnois. There's a time to cry. There's a time to laugh. Eis livkos, eis lischak. There's a time, lispoi, there's a time to mourn, to eulogize, to grieve. Eis rikoi, there's a time to dance. There's a time to throw rocks. And there's a time to bring in the rocks. Not throw rocks. There's a time to hug, and there's a time to stop hugging. That's what Shlomo Melech says. Then he says, there's a time to look, to seek, and there's a time la'abed, to let it go, to lose it. There's a time to keep something, and there's a time to disregard it. There's a time to tear, there's a time to sow, there's a time to be quiet, and there's a time to speak. There's a time to love, there's a time to hate, there's a time for war, and the last one is, and there's a time for peace. Altogether, it's 28 itim. It's called Chavches itim. Ace this, a time for this, ace for this. Last one is Ace Milchama, Ace Shalom. And each one opposes the other one. So it's 14 in the positive and 14 that are challenging. So he starts off this whole discussion, L'koil Zman Va'es. Everything has a season. There's a season and a time set for everything under the heaven. So the Tzemach Tzedek says that this medrash in Keitz Lachoshech is similar to what the Zohar says on this pasuk, Sheyesh Zman Kotzav Lachoshech HaGalos. That there's an established time for the darkness of Galus. There's a set season for it. It's Kotzav. Kotzav means bashtimt, fixed. There's a Zman Kotzav. But Tzarech Lahav, and as the Rebbe L'chayri, you have to understand, this is not from the Rebbe Rashab's mind, but this was the Rebbe's original opening. The Kiv, and Shekol Advanim Shabaylam Yashlam Zman Kotzav L'kol Zman. Since everything in the world has a fixed time, L'kol Zman, everything has a set time. As he says, there's a season set for everything. Ma'u Chiddush b'Keitz Lachoshech. So what's the Chiddush that Iyov, according to the Medrash, points this out about darkness? Everything has a time. Why would darkness be excluded? You would think that everything, there's a season set for everything. Besides, darkness has free reign and it's uninhibited and it's infinite. Where did darkness get such a power? Yet here he points out Keitz Lachoshech for darkness. And even more, he's not understanding. The Meloshen Akos of Keitz Lachoshech mashma shachoshech mitzad atzmai ein lekeitz. Elisha some like Keitz. That's how it feels like sometimes. He doesn't just say darkness has an end. He says Keitz some. He established, some means he placed an end time on darkness. What it sounds like is darkness on its own doesn't have an end. It's endless. And this is quite a question. It seems like it's limitless, huh? Or so it feels. Some like Keitz. It's almost like he imposed, like the darkness on its own would just continue and continue and continue, no end. Keitz some Lachoshech. So the first question is, everything has an end. Why would darkness be excluded, that you have a special emphasis in the pasuk, Keitz some Lachoshech, as though darkness needs its own plan? Second of all, here it's mashma that it's even more than that. It's not just it has an end like everything else. On its own it doesn't. And some, it's almost had to be imposed on it. And that's how it sometimes feels, right? It's not just describing the pasuk. Sometimes when a person is in darkness, what makes it so dark is that it doesn't feel like it has an end. In its feeling, it's ever consuming. And wherever you turn, it's there. So it's almost like the some Lachoshech. It's like imposed on it. He says, is that really what he's saying? So the Rebbe says, the explanation in this is, you could say as follows. This is a big chiddush. All the negative things that are not present in the 14 seasons that have been established for the positive. We went through 28 seasons, right? There's a time for birth, there's a time for death, there's a time to laugh, there's a time to cry, there's a time for war, there's a time for peace. So all the good things that cancel out the negative things in the 14 seasons that have been established for the positive, it means rak only shalayeshnam oz b'poyel. That in actuality, the negativity is gone. Why? Because of the good that's present, the negative vanishes. So it's a fact. It's a matter. It's a state of reality. The same you could say with light and darkness. Darkness is an absence of light. So when you have light, it's doiche. It expels the darkness. We see, as he brings from Chovos HaLevavos, from Tanya Chovos HaLevavos, that even a little bit of light expels a lot of darkness. You can have a very dark room and you light one candle. Proportionately, it would seem that there's an equal competition, the darkness should win, but the little bit of light banishes a lot of darkness. So that's the idea, that when you bring in a positive energy in a negative space, the negative may be supplanted, may be replaced by the positive. So there's a time for war, but then hopefully comes an era of peace, and all the parties realize that war is not a good thing, so the peace replaces the war. There's a time to cry, and then there's a time to laugh. He says a time to eulogize and grieve, and there's a time to dance. So when you're dancing, at this point, it replaces the previous reality. But there's no guarantee, but nobody's going to say that there's no potential for war. Keitz some Lachoshech is saying another word. He's not saying even war is going to come to an end and there's going to be a new season. But what happens 100 years later? It could be another war. We all know countries make peace and then something else happens. Yeah, what's happening with Trump and Iran? Right? Depends on the hour. Yeah. Keitz some Lachoshech is saying something else. Keitz some Lachoshech is not that there's an end to darkness because there's going to be good times coming. There's an end to darkness means that darkness will be defeated at its core forever. There's going to come a point that the reality of darkness won't even be a possibility in potentiality. It's not just we're having good times now. Okay, great, enjoy. It's a different word. The seasons, he asked the question, everything has an end. That's true. But with Choshech, he's saying a new word. Keitz some Lachoshech. The whole reality of darkness, then, when that Keitz comes, it won't even be shaykh. It won't even be possible. When you speak about an eternal redemption that won't have a galus afterwards, this is an expression of Tosfos and Psachim, that the Geula Hasid is going to be a Geula she'ein acharei galus. It doesn't mean that in reality we won't be expelled again. First Beis Hamikdash was 410 years. Second Beis Hamikdash was 420 years. And the third Beis Hamikdash, we will retain our power forever. That's not the Vart. That means it's eternal in reality, but that's not the Taich Nitzchi. The Taich Nitzchi is she'ein shayach shechagalos. It's not possible in any other way. So it's a different type of redemption. It's a different quality. It's not just it's going to happen to be that this time the good news is not going to end. And what he's really saying here is that we don't understand what Geula means. When we think of Geula, we're comparing it, okay, it won't be 400 years, it'll be 500 years. It'll be 500 years, it'll be 1,000 years. It won't be 1,000 years, 10,000. Not 10,000, a million. Not a million, it's like a billion. Yeah. Right? They talk about a professor in university, and he was explaining how at some point, in 4 billion years, it's obvious from every scientific point of view that the Earth is going to be extinct. So there was an old Jew in the crowd who started to have heart palpitations. Atzola, atzola, atzola. They said, what's the problem? He's frightened because the Earth is going to be extinct. He was going crazy. So the professor says, I said 4 billion years. He said, oh yeah, I thought you said 4 million. 4 billion, he doesn't have to worry. 4 million, it's his job to worry. Yeah. So the way we understand it is, it's going to be 4 billion years. Don't worry about it. Any gullus you could think of, it's going to be pushed off. He says that's not the vart. The vart of Geula Nitzchis means the inyan of gullus won't be shayach anymore. What is that? Why not? Why not? You could just say God is going to be kind enough to say, you know what, they had enough. Let them just have peace, and it's fine. It's a new era. That's not what he's saying. Keitz Lachoshech means it's a different type of inyan. But what does that even mean? So that's what he's going to start explaining. Right? There's two types of liberation in life. One is you liberate yourself. You get liberated from the predicament, from the problem. And one is a different type of liberation that original challenge itself is transformed. As that's what he's going to explain now. The difference in the nullification of darkness. Whether it's just pushed off because of the light, or its entire existence has no room anymore, it can't exist. What does that depend on? That depends on the light that's being brought in. In order to push away the darkness, but even after you pushed it away, it can still rise again. It could make a comeback. That's even through limited form of light. As we said, even a little light pushes away a lot of darkness, but it doesn't mean that one day the darkness won't come back. It means right now there's light, amazing. But the darkness can come back. Everybody knows in their own life, there's moments of darkness, there's moments of light. It feels like the light, I'm a chaya, right? You have such moments, and then a week passes, a day passes, sometimes an hour passes, and the cheshach comes back. Because it's an mugbal. In order to nullify the darkness completely, it's a different type of light. It's not the same type of light. It's an infinite light. It says in Medrash, the Medrash says, why is it that the redemption of Egypt and the redemption from Bavel and all the other exiles that the Jews were liberated from until the future redemption were all redemptions that were followed by exile versus the future Geula, which is going to be eternal. So the Medrash says, he gives the example of the difference between the flame and the sun. When somebody lights a candle, you can extinguish it. You can blow it out. Even if it's a big candle, if it's a big flame, you can bring water, you can extinguish it. But what do you do when the sun is shining? How do you get rid of the sun? You could shut your Venetian blind. But at least in our human terms, it's not, what are you going to do? How are you going to fight the sun? You can't extinguish it. So the Medrash is giving this example, that the light of a flame, the light of a candle, you can extinguish. Kibui means to extinguish, mechabe. The light of the day ain't shayach by kibui. So he compares that this is the difference between the exodus of Egypt, or the exodus of Bavel, all the other redemptions, versus the ultimate Mashiach redemption in the future. Hainu, what is he trying to say? He's not just trying to give an example that the sun is more powerful than a candle. A candle is powerful, but the sun is a whole different dimension. He's saying something deeper. Hainu, shagili dugula sadi yigila erbilte mugbal shein shayich by hefsek. There's going to be a type of light that doesn't have any limitation. So it can't be interrupted. Not that it's not going to be interrupted. There's a big difference. It can't be interrupted. Why? Because it has no limit. So it permeates the darkness itself. And that's why it's going to be an eternal redemption that doesn't have galus. So in other words, what's the nukudah here? To put it in different words a little bit, which we're going to see later what that means in a person's life. There is undoing the darkness, banishing the darkness, expelling the darkness, overriding the darkness, which is all very, very powerful. But there's only one thing that can guarantee that it never comes back. And that is when you transform it, when you heal the darkness itself. That's the only thing that guarantees it doesn't come back. Because when it comes back, it's not going to be dark anymore. As long as you're bypassing the darkness, even if you're confronting it, and you're more powerful, there's still an opposition. You just defeated your enemy. Your enemy maybe had to go undercover. Your enemy for now may be dead. Right? But the enemy gene, the gene of the enemy is somewhere. And even if it's not on the surface, and even for 1,000 years you're not going to hear from him, that doesn't mean that somewhere in the world is not a darkness that can make a comeback. History is very, very volatile and we're vulnerable. You always have to know that. Right? The greatest mistake is you think you got rid of something, you got rid of it now. But he's right behind the door. And if he's not behind the door, he's sitting in a cave. You know, Hamas in Gaza. Huh? Yeah. And maybe not today, tomorrow. And maybe not him, maybe his child. And maybe not his child, his grandchild. The Bolsheviks made sure to kill out the Tsar's family till the last child. Because they didn't want, that one day somebody will say, I'm the new Tsar. In the 1920s, there was a woman from France, I believe, who said that she was a descendant of the Tsar and she wanted the throne. But then they said she was just challenged mentally, but in any case, right? They don't want any zecher, because it can emerge. The same is true on a spiritual level, on a psychological level, on an emotional level. Yeah. Shaul left Agag Melech HaMolech that night, and he had intimacy, and Haman came from there. So even when you do a successful job, but because the nature of it is there's light and there's darkness, so therefore even when the darkness is destroyed and killed and defeated, but the energy is somewhere there. How do you know that energy is not going to come back in some form? Yeah. So the only way is, he says, an ur bilti mugbal. What's an ur bilti mugbal? Ur bilti mugbal means it permeates even the darkness. Something in the darkness changes. There's a code word to the darkness that changes. That's the only way. That's ain't shayich by galus. It's not just it's not going to come back. It can't come back. And that's the geula. The geula is that something in history happens. Not that the darkness is gone. That something happens to the word darkness. That's geula. The geula is that the darkness is going to stop calling itself darkness. Not that the light is going to win. That's not the geula. That's a beautiful thing. Light should win over darkness. But that's not the vorter. That's not the real geula. The geula is that you're going to crack a secret code that darkness called itself darkness. That's who I am. Hello, darkness, my old friend, right? Hello. And suddenly, hello, light, my old friend. No, you got the wrong guy. I'm darkness. That's a crack in the core of the fabric of reality. How do you crack that? That's this Mammar. The truth is, you could say that this is really the whole pnimis in Chassidus. The whole pnimi, in some ways, you could say the Baal Shem Tov was told by Mashiach, right? That Yefutzah Ma'nesecha Chutzah, the spreading of Chassidus, that's the Hachana for Mashiach. So we understand it a little more here. Because it's not just a lot of goodness. Of course, a lot of goodness and a lot of holiness. It's something in the fabric of reality. It's like the back end, the back end program. In the DNA of Lachoshech, it's making a shift over there. And it happens internally in the person. And that shift is the shift from exile to redemption. Not just a shift that you're having a good day. You're inspired, you're upbeat, you're doing great things. That's all beautiful. That's like the previous redemptions. You're in a good situation until you're not. And when you're not, and you get punched in your nose, like what now? Now the battle starts again. The question, who's going to win? But this is something that changes in the code word. Your teufus. So that's the chiddush. This answers the question why Keitz Lachoshech. Everything has an end. No. Everything has an end because there's different seasons. Nothing lasts forever. Every book, you can read a book and the book comes to an end. It's time for a new book or it's time to go work. Everything comes to an end. That's not the word. Not that Lachoshech is going to come to an end. That the word Lachoshech is going to come to an end. The concept of darkness will come to an end. Not in Poyel, in its core. So it's not going to be shayach even to come back. There's not going to be a return of it. He says in 12, he says there's an bilti mugbal. It's a light that's infinite. He says, Masha kosav Keitz Lachoshech shemizem mashma dezeh shelo yishayach has galus elep neisha degula hasidu bilti mugbal elep neisha choshech yesh lekeitz leilakam and sifyut. The words Keitz Lachoshech makes it sound that the reason there won't be galus is not because the light of redemption will be infinite, but because the darkness has an end. Here he says inside it's the light that's infinite. Here he says it's the darkness. He says we'll see how the two come together. That's going to be at the end of the Mammar. He's going to bring it all together. Now, what that means in a person's life also, I mean, we're going to get to this later in the Mammar, is this is very heavy. You have sometimes in a person's healing, in a person's transformation, that you want to get them in touch with the light inside of them. You have darkness, but you also have light. And sometimes we're so consumed by our darkness, we can't see our light. This is very, very common, especially in our generation, where people, their baseline is their darkness. Right? That's my baseline. Even if the world looks at them and they seem successful and happy, but deep down, a lot of people know that deep inside, somehow you're more comfortable with your darkness than with your light. It's like more natural, it's more organic. It's like, you're my best friend. Darkness is a much better friend than my light. My light is shalom aleichem shalom baruch b'chaya mesim. But darkness is like, we're good old companions. Yeah, I'm sure some of you would relate to this, especially if you come to this shiur. So to help people get in touch with their light is a very, very big thing. It's a very powerful thing. I don't mean in touch intellectually. Oh, you're also a talented guy, Shine. You're good looking. Okay, thank you. Tell that to my nervous system. My nervous system doesn't think I'm good looking, doesn't think I'm talented, just thinks I'm the loser of the century. So to get a person in touch with their light, that itself is very, very powerful. But that's not what he's saying here. That's not the end of Galus. The end of Galus is by getting in touch with your darkness, not with your light. And sometimes that's the reason that you can't be afraid of your darkness. You have to sit with it. Because the ultimate goal, and that's what's happening in our generation, and that's what a lot of people are confused about. The ultimate geula is not about sitting with your light, it's sitting with your darkness. Because the ultimate geula is going to reveal that your darkness is where the solution is. That's the only way that darkness is not coming back. The reason that darkness is going to lose its entire reality is because it's going to be something over the darkness. The darkness is suddenly going to say, duh. The darkness is going to say it. So you see that we're living in a time that darkness is coming up for people. So some people are just mavatal, it's an entitled generation, spoiled. You think your grandfather had it much worse. He came out of Auschwitz, he didn't have darkness. And suddenly you in 2026, as a peshchita spoiled brat, you have all this darkness. What's the darkness? Well, you didn't have breakfast yesterday? That's your darkness? What's the darkness? That your house only has 7 bedrooms instead of 16 bedrooms? That you didn't have spare ribs for supper last night? You had Lachoshech? What's your darkness, right? So almost we make fun of it. Huh? Yeah, go eat potato peels, if even that. So I understand that, but there's really something much deeper that happens. The preparation to prepare for this type of geula only comes through darkness. Because you're not trying to eliminate it, you're trying to transform it. So it's a conversation with the darkness. It's darkness yielding to something deeper inside of itself. And that's a different type of redemption. And that's the Keitz, some Lachoshech. There's an end that was placed for the darkness. Not because of the light that's going to overpower it. But because it's going to be a shinui that's going to change even the possibility for it.
It's not a fight anymore?
Yeah, so there won't be a fight. And not just there won't be a fight because you're so strong, but tomorrow he may go to the gym and come back, right? There were countries that were defeated, and 200 years later, they were not defeated anymore. You had the British Empire, right? And then things change. And then but you don't know how things come back, right? Everything lurks in reality. Could you really tell me when Mashiach comes, no darkness is ever going to come back? Why not? Why not? So you say, oh, because God is powerful and he's going to make sure. He's going to keep everybody at bay. For that, you didn't need to go through this. This gives us a perspective of why you have to go through history. If God is powerful and he can keep everybody at bay because he's a big guy and he knows what he's doing, so we had to go through all of this. So keep everybody at bay. 5,786 years ago, and everybody would have been happier. Make a peace treaty and keep everybody at bay. All the mamzerim, ratzchim, shugayim, ratzchanim, gazlanim, just keep them at bay. Let them be quiet and let them sit under caves and barbecue and worship their gods. Right? If that's your chiddush, you're a muscular fellow, and you say, by the way, one day I'm going to show up, and when I show up, when Tati comes home, you remember when Tati comes home, right? When Tati comes home, right, all the Chayis Royas are going to, because they're pashut frightened. So everybody stands in their den, right? In the old days when kids were afraid of their fathers. And but the second Tati goes out, yeah? We go back. I was having a Malava Malka, so country Yossi was there. So he told a joke, or maybe it wasn't a joke. He said that in Borough Park there was somebody, a couple, they were leasing out their house. They were living downstairs and they had an upstairs. So they were offering it to lease. So somebody comes and he says, I want to lease it for 8 years. Amazing. But they had the condition. The condition is no children. Because they wanted peace. They were an older couple. They were in their 80s. They go to sleep early. They don't want upstairs. There should be children. The guy says, I agree. Signs a contract, 8 years. Okay. First night, the couple goes to sleep at 8:30 and suddenly they hear a tumult from upstairs. It sounds like the ceiling is caving in. So the old man goes upstairs and he sees 14 children jumping all over the place. Jumping, moving furniture. 8 years he signed up for. So he calls in this fellow, his tenant, and he says, why'd you lie to me? He says, where did I lie? He said, wir haben abgemacht, nicht da keine Kinder. We made up no children. He said, das ist Kinder, das ist Chayes. Das ist nicht Kinder, das ist Chayes. Schein. Yeah. If that's how we view history, das ist nicht Kinder, das ist Chayes, and God says, wait till I come home, because when I come home, when Mashiach comes, Tati's going to drop, everybody's going to be quiet. So this is, you have to go through all of history. What the Rebbe is revealing here is it's a different vart. We know God is powerful. That's not the vart of history. The vart of history is that you're powerful. It's that the world, that the darkness is going to start talking a different language. Not that the light is going to talk a different language. The darkness is going to talk a different language. The change of the vocabulary of darkness, that's the chiddush of real geula. Internally, when those parts of you that are most causing you distress, think about all the parts in you that you would like to get rid of. That's your darkness. You want to press Control, Alt, Delete. All the parts of you that made the most tzaddas and still make the most tzaddas. All the feelings, instincts, emotions, cravings, messes, addictions, all those little pieces, right? All those little ghosts and demons and skeletons, whatever you want to call them. They're going to change their vocabulary. That's already a different language. Gimel. Verstehst? Der Basil, der Herz, was tut sich? Ah? We can't bypass though. It's nice to say there's no real darkness. I get it, but internally to say that. In other words, my mind can say it, and I can be convinced, and I can have moments, but that our internal, the energetic energy of darkness should say that. That's what Mashiach looks like. And that's why Mashiach always begins inside, not outside. Right? The Alter Rebbe says in Igeres HaKodesh Siman Daled that the Geula Klolos that we talk about could happen every day individually in your own psyche. So it's not like a joke the Alter Rebbe is saying. The whole experience that the Baal Shem Tov wanted to bring to the world, Alter Rebbe wanted to bring to the world, is this. It's a consciousness inside where you go into a real redemptive consciousness. And that's exactly what the frequency of Mashiach is. They tell a story that Mendel Haradoker, he was a Talmud of the Maggid, and he was, after the Maggid passed away, the Alter Rebbe accepted him as his teacher. And then he moved to Tveria, Tavkuf Lamed Zayin, 1777, he moved to Tveria, and he's buried there. He lived there for 11 years. The Priya Aretz, Reb Mendel of Vitebsk. He was like the oldest students of the Maggid. So Reb Shlomo Yosef Zeven brings a story, I think in Sipurei Chassidim, that once there was a man, and he was mentally challenged, and he went up to the Har HaZeisim, and he blew a shofar on the Mount of Olives. So rumor had it that Eliyahu Hanavi blew the shofar, which means Mashiach is atatat. This is before the days of WhatsApp, this is 1700s. But the rumor spread very, very fast, and it came to Tveria. And they told Reb Mendel of Vitebsk, he was in his house, that the rumor is Eliyahu Hanavi went up, somebody on the Har HaZeisim is literally blowing the shofar. It's Eliyahu, it could be Eliyahu Hanavi and Atat. There was a tremendous excitement. So Reb Mendel of Vitebsk went to his window, he opened his window, he stuck out his head, and he sniffed. And he said, Leider noch nicht. Unfortunately, not yet. So the Chassidim asked, what did he have to sniff? If he could smell these stuff, he can't schmecken in Shtub, he could have smelled it in the kitchen. The answer is, in his house, you can always smell the atmosphere of Geula. So he couldn't smell in his house, he had to go out. Then they turned out that this person was unfortunately mentally challenged, and he was blowing shofar not for... He wasn't Eliyahu Hanavi, let's put it that way. So that's Geula Pratis, and then there's Geula Klolos when it's felt in the entire universe, but it's a frequency, so to speak, inside. It's a very, very that's the frequency of Geula. You look at the darkness differently. It's like wow, boom, cracked open. That's a different type. That's not coming back because you redid it. You understand? Gam oiva.
Am I hearing things, or was that it? I had to tell him there's also somebody.
Unless you're Eliyahu Hanavi, you don't know it yet. That's also possible. You know that, right? Gimel. V'hine yadua. Now you could essentially say that this Mammar is the blueprint to reach this place. This Mammar is the blueprint. It's the map to reach this place, this consciousness. That's the Teichen of the Mammar. This is the introduction. V'hine yadua. It's built very intricately. V'hine yadua shekol gilui hu ha'idei Torah. This itself is a line that deserves a few shiurim. Every revelation comes through Torah. And he puts in parentheses, very simple, Torah. There's a pasuk in Mishlei, Ner mitzvah v'Torah. What does it mean? Torah is light. But they're saying not just Torah is light. Every revelation in the world comes through Torah. Torah means Torah is light. What is light? Light is revelation. So it's basically every revelation comes through Torah. If it didn't come through Torah, you have to know exactly what's going on. Because if it's a real Gilu, it's coming through Torah. It's always through Torah. That's why people who have revelations and they divorce it from Torah, you have to be very suspicious. If it's a real divine consciousness, it's rooted in Torah. It could be it's not so simple, it's not so revealed, but it's rooted in Torah. It goes back to Torah. Move on. From this we understand the kivan shebitul cheshach hagalus oidei oir lachein bechdei lekade v'lamayir oid yoser sagula asidu oidei limud b'toyda binyan oir. So he says, if the nullification of the darkness of galus is through light, which we just explained, not the finite light, but the infinite light that permeates everywhere, including into the darkness, so that means, and every revelation is through Torah, and the bittul of galus is through oir. So where do you have to find that oir? So you have to find the oir in Torah. So you want to learn in Torah the theme of oir. Because we're saying till bimavatal galus oir. You need the oir. That's what we're talking about. And every gilui, including of oir, even oir comes through oir. The revelation of light also needs light. You need light to see light, right? So the revelation of light also needs Torah. So therefore, to hasten the geula, it's through learning in Torah about light, because that allows us to get in touch with oir. So he says in 14, Torah is light. All Torah is light, especially Pnimiyus HaTorah. It's called Oir. But anything you learn in Torah is Oir. Everything is Oir. But when you learn about Oir in Torah, it's much more. Because here the specific subject is Oir. So it actually channels light. Well, Lahayir. On this he says that this is Lahayir. Lahayir means to comment, but it's not just a comment. This is like the basis of the Mammar. Well, Lahayir the Bedru Shaladmur Mar Shabnish Masayet Shenemar Brit Shabbos Tishabav Nitche Meduber Binyan Oir. The Mammar that the Rebbe Rashab said 50 years ago, Tofrei Shayin Daled, like it says in 15, Tofrei Shayin Daled, 1914. The whole Mammar was about what? It was about Oir. And as he says in 15, fascinating, Hemshech Tarab, Ulahoyer Shalacha Oira, and Yanam Shabbamayim Zeh, Einam Shayachim Kolkach, Lanyanam Maimanim Shalafanav Shalacharav. The Hemshech of Ayim Beis, all the Hemshechim are series. So one Mammar flows into another one. There's a Hemshech Samachvav, a Hemshech Ayim Beis. These are huge, famous Hemshechim in the world of Chabad Chassidus. Ayim Beis is the longest. It went on for years. And the last part he didn't even say, he just wrote. So he says, this Mammar, you see, that it's like a bridge. It's not so much connected to the previous and to the last, so really you could skip it. So what the Rebbe is really suggesting is not so specifically that he chose to say it because it was Tisha B'Av. So he wanted to speak about Oir. The Yeshloima Shashayich is the Yinzel Tisha B'Av Nitchahu Ki Tisha B'Av Shechol B'Shabbos V'Nitchahu Mesugal Lifel Shiyah Nitcha Legamri Utchias Abitul Hagolus Oidei Oir. Tisha B'Av Shechol B'Shabbos, it's pushed off. So it's always a zgula that it should be completely pushed off. There's even a shita in Gemara, kiven the itche. So when it's pushed off once, it has in it the potential be pushed off even more. And how do you push it off ultimately? How do you get rid of it? Through Oir. So on Tisha B'Av, Tofrei Shayin Daled, the Rebbe Rashab said a Mammar that was dedicated to Oir. To Oir. The inyan of Oir, the sugya of Oir in Kabbalah and Chassidus. That's what the Mammar is about. Why? It's not stam. It's essential to the time. You see that it was bediyuk. In the Mammar, the Rebbe Rashab doesn't say this. He just gets into the Oir. But the Rebbe is revealing, it's based on everything we explained, Keitz Lachoshech. So he wanted Tisha B'Av, he wanted to get in touch with the inyan of Oir. And of course, this explains why this whole Mammar is about Oir. And it's one of the deepest Maimarim about Oir. Now, I should just add, when you go a little more into the history of it, the Rebbe Rashab says the Mammar, that's why I began with this, on the day that the First World War broke out. Mammer's that day. Now, there was no WhatsApp in Lubavitch in 1914. And even if it was WhatsApp, it was on Shabbos. So here, now you see a whole vart here. It's not stam. That day, you could say the world was engulfed in the greatest darkness that would ever come. Because as I told you, the First World War, before the Second World War, was called the Great War. Nobody knows that today. Because once the Second World War happened, it wasn't the Great War anymore. It became the First World War. And the Second World War was so catastrophic that it eclipsed the First World War. But if you ask any Jew till 1939 about the First World War, it was the greatest disaster. It was an unbelievable disaster on many, many levels. And it is what emboldened Hitler to start the Second World War, because Germany was seeking revenge and dignity after their terrible defeat in the First World War. They were completely defeated. And that's how Hitler got back the spirit of the Germans. We're going to bring back our dignity. And of course, the Jews were the scapegoats because they were guilty for the defeat of the First World War in his imagination. So this wasn't just a day of Tisha B'Av. It was a day like the original Tisha B'Av. It engulfed the world in a new darkness. So the fact that on that day, the Rebbe Rashab decides to say a maimed about Eir, and you're going to see what he says about Eir. And the Rebbe 50 years later is explaining that he's trying to bring out the inyan of the Eir that's going to ultimately put an end to the darkness. What type of end to the darkness? Not that the darkness will be defeated once again, but that the darkness will not even have a possibility to ever return because of a transformation in the core fabric of reality. That's what the Maimon is really trying to do. So the fact that on the day that the world was literally going down into the abyss, and an abyss that we still didn't recover from. I mean, if you think about the Jewish people, on so many different levels, on that day, right, in his little town in Lubavitch, a Rebbe, Rosh Bnei Yisrael, is also putting in a new code into the back end program of the universe that's ultimately going to bring Geula. So just it's pretty mind-boggling, to say the least. Unfortunately, the first event is much more known than this event. In other words, what happened August 1st, 1914, on the world, in the global sense, is much more known than what happened in the city of Lubavitch on August 1st, 1914. But that's going to change soon. This is going to become more known. Yeah. Okay, so now starts the explanation itself. Now, here the Maimon takes a big shift. Now the Maimon goes into what's called in Chabad vernacular, deep Haskalah. He goes in now to the sugi of Eir, and it gets very, very, like in the all the sugis of Chassidus that the Alter Rebbe developed, they're very, very deep and profound and intricate and complex. And the great mistake that many people who learn these things is they disassociate from it emotionally because they don't understand the relevance of it. It seems like almost a pilpul and a toisvus. So pilpul and toisvus everybody is used to, whether you're discussing ribbis, or you're discussing Shorsh Nagachas Apara, you're discussing Hilchas Shchita. When it comes here, you're talking about such spiritually abstract ideas. The pilpul seems like, what? Like, I could barely understand the basic level. It's deeper and deeper and deeper. He's going to start dissecting it deeper and deeper and deeper and ask questions on it. And here is where your fortitude and endurance is going to be tested. Because with these things, it's very, okay, just tell me something nice and inspirational. I'm having a hard day. Just inspire me. Yeah. So that's all nice, but that's not the Nekudah here. The Nekudah is not to give inspiration. The Nekudah here is to understand darkness. To be able to talk to darkness in a different way. For this, you have to go to a much deeper place of light. And for this, you have to pierce through the secrets of creation. And therefore comes this whole discussion. So it's going to be a long discussion in Haskalah, in the ideas of light. And then the whole thing, and that's going to be a hafla of a fellow, is going to be explained in Avodah. What's the relevance in a person's life? In other words, how all of these dimensions are expressed in a person's internal life. And then he's going to get back to the way it's expressed in history with light and darkness of Golus and Gula. So it's now going to take on this journey. So let's begin. Before Mammar, he explains in the Mammar, which Mammar? This is the Mammar 50 years ago, the 50 years earlier of the Rebbe Rashab. He actually, I think he begins Tzion b'Mishpatei Pod, if I'm not mistaken. And the Rebbe changed it to Keitz Lachoshech, which is also very interesting. Before Mammar, the Eir hu Ayin. Yeah, that's a line. Eir is Ayin, which means bittel. Tachilik ben Eir v'Keli hu Eir hu Ayin hu Kli hu Yash. Okay. Yeah, you could stop just right here, Shengenugay. Eir is Ayin. That's what you want to know what Eir really is? Till today, all scientists go crazy. Nobody knows what light is. You can even ask ChatGPT. They'll explain to you how confusing it is. Nobody knows what it is. We have thousands of explanations, but what's Eir? Nobody knows what it is. And here the Rebbe is saying, you know why nobody knows what it is? Because it's ayin, of course. The worst thing you could do to ayin is think that you know it. That's ayin will defy any tangible explanation. That is what ayin is. Yesh lends itself to tangible explanations. That's what makes it a yesh. Yesh means something. Ayin means nothing. Really, ayin is no thing, as we explained in the previous class. Right? No thing. It's not nothing. It's no thing. It's not a thing. Of course, it's not nothing. We like to call no thing nothing. If it's not a thing, what do we say in English? It's not a thing. So if it's not a thing, it's nothing. Right? If I can't control you, so what are you? Nothing. You don't exist. But on a higher reality, it's the opposite. The less a thing it is, the more it is. But it's not isness in our form of isness. So he says that's essentially the difference of Eid and Keli. The reason light has so many paradoxes, the reason light is so nebulous, it's so intangible, it's so complex, it's so subtle, it's so abstract, is because essentially it's tuning into the reality of ayin. Even physical light. Physical light is physical, so you can't really call it ayin. Right? You can't really call it, but still, the closest metaphor we have in the physical world for ayin is Eir. That's why Eir has the properties of ayin, the way it's manifested within a physical world. Even the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. Like 360,000 kilometers per second, the speed of light. There's a huge paradox in light, we're not going to get into it, if it's a particle or a wave. So first they thought it's this, then they thought it's this. And then they realized it's both, and they tested it and they realized it retains its paradox. But when you look at it, it collapses into one model because we force it into one reality because we can't deal with paradox. Either you're a particle or you're a wave. Because they operate in paradoxical ways. You can't be, the clock can't move this way and the other way simultaneously. At least we say it can't. Right? Like all these types of things which you see in light, it's all because essentially, from a spiritual perspective, Oid is the inyan of ayin. What is ayin bittel? We'll soon see what that means more. What is keli? Keli is the opposite. Keli is yesh. Ubahabittel the Oid gimel madregas. But when you want to understand the bittel of Oid, there's 3 states of consciousness in Oid. Now he says 3 levels. It almost sounds like 3 levels, like 3 steps. Gimel madregas means there's 3 types of bittel. There's 3 states of consciousness of bittel. Or to put it in this lashon, Oid has 3 madregas. What does bittel look like? Now, I'm going to say what he says. Habittel, if you don't understand, you're normal. Habittel the Oid mitzad atzmai. I want you to hear the words. This is the one is the bittel of Oid mitzad itself. What do you mean mitzad itself? Mipnei she'oid me'ein amoyer. Because light, by definition, is me'ein amar. What does it mean me'ein amar? Light has a statement. And the statement of light is, I am here to reveal my source. That's who I am. That's what makes it bittel. That's what light is. Every other physical reality in the world says, I'm here. You know why I'm here? Ich. You like me, you don't like me, I couldn't care less, but I'm here. I hope you like me. The Oir is the only character who comes and says, don't look at me. You're looking at the wrong guy. Don't look at me. What do you mean? No. Look at my source. You understand what that means? Yeah. That's why Oir is so precious in Chassidus. Because that's really everything. Oir says, don't look at me. I'm not going to hijack the attention here. That's everything else says, of course look at me. I'm big. Rabbi Adin Steiner, Rabbi Adin Yisrael said, it's interesting, a frog has a mechanism that it inflates itself. I don't know if you ever saw when a predator is coming, the frog blussachon, becomes like a balloon, and this little tiny frog is this big guy. And he's basically saying, don't start up. I'll kill you, I'm more powerful than you. So Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz asked a brilliant question. He says, why is it that an elephant doesn't have this mechanism? Why an elephant doesn't have this mechanism? The answer is, the reason. An elephant doesn't need it, right? An elephant doesn't need it. A frog needs it. Yeah. So he said in life, there are frogs and there are elephants. And you have to know who you are. Yeah. The chiddush of Oir, the revolution of Oir, is the revolution of Bittul. Oir is the property, the reality that Hashem created in the world, that's the closest reflection to the inyan of Ayin. What is Ayin? Ayin means that the greatest contradiction to truth is ego, Metzius. Not just physical ego, even spiritual ego. What is Keli? Keli is the opposite. Keli is a container. What's a container? A container is, I grasp it. I turn it into a tangible reality. Now in life, everything is a marriage of Ur and Keli. Light, vessel. Energy, container. There are musical notes and there is the music. The musical notes are the Kalim. The music itself is the Ur. Right? You have the idea and then you have writing down the idea in your book. Those are the Kalim. Everything has, there's the dream, there's the energy, and there's the vessel, there's the container. In its source, Ur essentially is always pointing to its source. So it always says, I'm just a channel. I am here to reveal my source. That's who I am. Well, I want to talk about you. And Ur says, and that's what you see in science. It's crazy. The physicists look at light and they say, we want to talk about you. And light says, you got the wrong guy. I'm not me. No. Who are you? I don't exist. I'm just the source. You're a particle. Okay, I'm a particle. No, but you're a wave. Okay, but you're a part. So who are you? You're missing the point. So it's fascinating. Even the physical property of Ur, it's defying the conversation of who are you. It doesn't lend itself to that. Because essentially what it's saying is, you're missing the boat. Right? You're trying to become obsessed with me because that's the vocabulary you're used to. My entire identity is, look at my source. I'm just channeling the source. I am revealing the source. That's what all light is. What is light? What does light accomplish? The light of the sun, what does it do for us? 8 minutes, it takes 8 minutes for the light to travel from the Mammar, from the sun. It comes here and allows me to see, if we're at daytime, we're using the light of the sun, it allows me to see your face. It allows me to see the table. It allows me to see the world. Or whatever the source of light is. It could be a candle, it could be a flame, it could be a flashlight. Right? It's a dark room, I open a flashlight, and the light that's emitted balances off that object, and it comes to my eye, and it teaches me about you. Without light, I wouldn't have that ability to know you. So the whole inyan of Ur is Me'ein HaMoyer. It's always pointing to the source. That's its definition. And it's the only physical object that tells that to you. My eye is pointing to something else, channeling. That's Ur. So that's the first thing in Ur. Habitl d'Ur mitzad atzmim ibnei sha'Ur u'me'ein ha'moyer. That's what Ur is. That's its mission statement. You understand? Number one. Number two. Habitl shebaya idei shenirgash by mekayre. There's a second level of Ur. The bitl in Ur because it feels its source. Number two. Number three. Habitl shaloi mitzat teva haratzei v'aliyah shebay lekol b'mekayre. The bitl of Ur because there's an embedded nature in the Ur that he wants to go back to his source and be subsumed in his source. So you just said there's three states of consciousness of Ur. One is the bitl of Ur mitzat itself, mitzat its identity. Who is it? Ur is no thing. It's pointing to a source. Don't hijack my energy. Don't take me seriously. My entire mission is to reveal. Number two, there's the bittul in Ur because it feels its source. Nirgash by Mekayre. Number three, the bittul because it wants to go back and be subsumed in its source. That's what the Rebbe Rashab says in the Mammar. At first glance, it seems like semantics. What's the difference between the three? V'tzarich lahavin. The Rebbe right away says, I don't understand. Haregam habitl d'Ur mitzat atzmai hu l'cha'or zeh she'or ein metzias la'atzmai v'inyan yogilu amayr. U'ma'u achilik ben ha'or atzmai she'inyan yogilu amayr l'zeh she'nirgash by mekayre. The difference between level 1 and level 2 seems completely irrelevant or doesn't make sense. What's the first level of the bitl of Ur? That on its own, it's not a metzias la'atzmai. Everything else has an ego. I am here, look at me. And Ur says, don't look at me, look at what I'm revealing. Always. Or it allows us to see something else. which it is revealing. So it's not a Metzias. That is its Metzias. So what does he add then something to? Let me tell you a second level, that it feels its source. That's level one, that it's always pointing to its source. It's a big question. So the Rebbe Rashab made these three levels of oil, but it looks like once you get to the bottom of it, you're saying one thing. You're saying a nice thing, that oil is bittul and keli is Metzias. Fine. It feels its source. Great, but in the first level, that's what it means. It's always pointing to the source. In other words,
But it feels it.
it's not me.
It feels it. The first one is I'm feel from my channel. That's it. And the second one I actually feel it. It's some kind of a
So you're saying the second one, it feels its source. Something is happening, and that's a higher level. What makes it a higher level? That's what he's trying to understand. Even the first one, it means what? That if you ask him, who are you? He says, I am not. I'm pointing to something beyond me. Great. And the second one is also you're saying, you feel your source. The first one also, he says, I am just source. I'm just reflecting source. I am just reflecting source. The Rebbe Rashab adds in the Mammar that the second level of bittul is called kaloi chashiv. Kaloi chashiv means it's like you're not considered. You don't have a chashivus. Like let's say, you'll say if you light a candle in the middle of the day, the Gemara says, shraga b'tir mayahani. Right, a candle in sunlight, mayahani. It doesn't have a chashivus. It's not like, oh, look at the candle. It's completely irrelevant, so to speak, in the presence of such light. By night, it becomes chashiv. So kaloi chashiv means it's like not chashiv. It's like not considered. That's what he says the second level is. That because it feels its source, so it becomes like kaloi chashiv, like irrelevant, so to speak.
You can put that on the first one too.
Oh, not only that, good question, but he's saying l'cha'ira. Why is this the second level? The first level is much deeper. Because what was the first level? That the oid is not a metzias for itself, and its whole inyan is to reveal the Mammar. That's much deeper than the bittul of kaloi chashiv. Ki a bittul de kaloi chashiv urak b'negei l'chshivusay she'en lo erech v'chshivus l'gabe mekayrev ein ze negei l'atz metziusay. The bittul of kaloi chashiv means that you're not chashiv. You don't have a chashivus l'gabe your source. You're not chashiv. But legabe yourself, you could be a very big metzias. Maybe legabe, the candle in sunlight is not relevant, but the candle itself has a metzias. The first level is that the oid itself is bottle, so it's even deeper. And yet the Rebbe Rashab says that the bittul number two, by feeling its source, what does it add on the first level? The bittul on of its own is the bittul kalei chashiv. Kalei chashiv is a much lower level of bittul. It just means my chashivus is nothing. But in terms of my etzem etzias, I could be very, very powerful. Relative to somebody else, fine, not. Yeah.
Rabbi Rashab says that each level is greater than the one before.
Yeah, of course. There's three madregas, one deeper than the other. And here it seems the other one. So first he wants to understand what's the difference between one and two. It seems identical. Even more, he's asking, why is two higher than one? One is much higher than two. One is actually a statement about the core of Ur. The second is only, legabe the mucker, okay, you're not such a chashav guy. It's like you'll tell me a big Talmud Chacham and you say, legabe the Bakiva Eger, legabe the Rambam, legabe Rashi, legabe Moshe Rabbeinu, you're an Amoritz. Okay, that's true. If Moshe Rabbeinu is going to come here, I'm an Amoritz. But legabe another million people, he's a big Talmud Chacham. Kaloi chashiv is always relative. Legabe, this is the sun, the candle is nothing. Legabe Moshe Rabbeinu, you're nothing. Okay, but in my little corner, ich bin arash kabag.
Level 2 has a definition.
So you see constantly, so kaloi chashiv doesn't affect your metzias fakert. Some people in the presence of other great people, they're talking nothing. But when they come to their little corner, people think that they're God's gift to humanity, even though their wife knows the truth. In their house, taka, it's a very good example. In your house, kaloi chashiv, zog garnished, trach garnished. But then you come to your office, you have 360 employees. You have suddenly your words are like, wow, brilliant, priceless. That's why you don't go home at night. You don't want to become, right? You hear the word, it's a gewaldig. The first level of oid is a bittul in its etzem. It's not kaloi chashiv, when you come home, you're not chashiv. It's you are bottle. The second level is just legabe, the mucker, legabe, the sun, the ray is not chashiv. Okay. But over here, let's talk it with the sun, right? If you're sitting outside and the ray of the sun is hitting you, it's very chashuv. Yeah, relative to the sun, it's nothing. Okay, not relative, but I just got a sunburn. It's not a vart in mitzias, it's a vart in chashivas. And yet the Rebbe Rashab says that the second level of kaloi chashiv is a deeper bittul. It doesn't make sense. Now here you have a classic thing, right? This is how Chassidus Chabad works, right? This deep, it's almost like it's a toisvis. But I'm keep on saying this because a lot of people get stuck here. Like, I'm looking for inspiration. Like, what do you, like, tell me how to deal with my Yetzer Hara. But that's not what Limud Chassidus is, a transformation of essence. To have a transformation of essence, you need to go into the deep places of reality. That's what he's trying to do. He's not trying to make a pilpul here in Oir, Stama pilpul. Right? I'm saying this because if you stick through it, a lot of people don't. We have like people 12 seconds and that's it. But if you stick through it, you see that new levels of self, new levels of reality open up for us. Be'ezer Hashem. Okay. In order to understand the answer, it's going to be now the answer. Answered. In order to understand what he's going to say now, we need to understand a little bit what this inyan of Oir is. Like, what are we really talking about? Because it's whenever you come to Kabbalah and Chassidus, the worst thing is to get stuck in words, or even in concepts. It's not words and concepts. It's states of consciousness. It's states of reality. So when he says there's 3 levels of Oir, the worst thing you could think is like 3 coffee cups. Let's set up. Oir number 1, Oir number 2, Oir number 3. Bittul, me'etzem etzias, kaloi chashiv, ratzei, right? It's you're not talking. It's not a game of of kugelach. Yeah. Right. We use words because that's how we speak. We can't speak about ayin without words. Unfortunately, we'll get there one day. So we use words. The words we use for ayin is Oir. The words we use for yesh is keli. So essentially, Oir and keli are code words. They're not real words. You understand what I'm saying? They're not real words. They're just, how do you talk about ayin? How do you experience ayin? So the word Alter Rebbe used to use for ayin was Oir. The word Alter Rebbe used to use for yesh is keli. Why did he use Oir and keli? Why couldn't he say ayin and yesh? Because Oir and keli bring out the depth of ayin and yesh. Of course he could have used the words ayin and yesh. But Oir and keli represent the system that Hashem put into the world for us to be able to relate to the experience. That's the inyan of Oir and keli. Torah is called Torah Oir. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be simple to say that the first level of Or is basically a message? It's a message. Somebody sends you a message.
Yeah.
The second level of the Or, you resonate with that message. So it's actually to reach the goal. Because the purpose of it was to reach you out, to reach you. The third one, when you reflect that message, you go back to the Torah. You send it back in a way. Thank you, I got it.
Very nice. So you're saying the first level of Oir is a message. A message is sent to you. That's what Oir is. Every Oir is essentially a message. It's like a transportation. In science, they call Oir photons, right? It's photons that are released, and it reaches us. So it's like a shliach. Yeah. Every Oir is like a shliach. It's really God's shlichus mechanism. The first shliach in history was Oir, is Oir. And that's why it's the first creation. What's the first thing? Vayomer Elokim, Yihi Oir, Vayihi Oir. Why is that the first thing? L'cha'oira, light you only need once you have creation. Trees need photosynthesis. Animals, humans all need light. Even fish need light. So light comes afterwards. The answer is because the first Bria was Shlichus. The inyan of Oir. That's the bridge between Ayin and Yesh. Yeah. So you're saying the first level of light is Shlichus. A message was sent. Then there's what happens afterwards. Okay, so let's try to be typhus this a little bit. What is the whole inyan of Oir? Yeah. Alter Rebbe always uses the word Mammarim, the word Oir Ein Sof, constantly. We learned in Basi Lagani a lot about that, why he uses that word. It comes from the Arizal. The Arizal always used the word Oir. The Chachmei HaKabbalah, the philosophers use the word Shefa. They like the word Shefa. The Kabbalists changed it to the word Oir. The Alter Rebbe and a few Maimonim says why they made that change. We'll see. There was a huge fundamental difference in Shefa and Oir. But in the writings of the Arizal and other Mekubalim, the word is usually Oir. In all of Chassidus, the term is usually Oir. Once in a while Shefa, but usually the word is Oir. What's the Chiddush of Oir? So he says here, there's Oir and there's Keli. Oir is Ayin, and Keli is Yesh. What does that really mean? The inyan of Oir is, like we said before, it doesn't have a metzias for itself. It's the only even physical light. Here we're talking about the divine light. We're using a metaphor. Like always, we use metaphors. They're limited, but they're useful. So when you see physical light, what is the function of physical light? Like you said, it's a message. The source wants to send you a message. It wants to communicate with you. In other words, I want to be in a relationship with you. That's why Oir, if you want, is the genesis of what we could call the relational field, the relationship spectrum. The spectrums of light, which is basically, to use the fancy words, you'll explain what it means, the electromagnetic wavelengths, are different ways in which the shliach is sent. Sometimes I have to send a shliach very far. Sometimes I have to send him close. Sometimes I'm sending him with a complex message. Sometimes with a simple message. Sometimes I'm sending him to this type of place. Sometimes to this type of place. That's the different, endless diversity of light. But a common denominator is, it's a medium. It's transportation. It's sending a message from the source. So the first inyan of Oir is that it's pointing to, a shliach says, I'm here on a shlichus. I'm here. And I'm it. I'm just a channel. And the moment you're going to start looking at me and start detaching me, you know what you're going to do? You're going to kill me. Because I don't exist outside of that. Literally like light. Right? The rays of light come in. If you want to separate the rays from the source, what happens? You put down the Venetian blind and you say, I want to take you the rays. Here, I want to take you. Like the story in Chelim, right? Kiddush Levana, right? They wanted to capture the moon in the barrel and they covered the barrel and they're still looking who stole the moon. Why? The light is here. The light is here. It's like if I'm looking in the mirror and I see the mirror reflecting, and then I walk away and I'm like, who stole my image from the mirror? There's a difference between a mirror and a picture. Picture is already a keli. So Oir, if you separate the Oir from the Moir, you shut the Venetian blinds, you put a curtain, right? The light is not continuing. Why? You cannot separate light from the source. Oir me'ena Moir. The Lashon Oir is davuk b'Moir. The whole inyan of Oir is, I am the Moir. Nothing else. There's no I. Right? The worst thing you could do to Oir is give it a compliment. It goes crazy. Like, you're killing me. You're killing me. You typhus in the Avodah? You're killing me. Why are you killing me? I'm making you big. You're not making me big. It's a death sentence. You're choking me. You're literally choking. What does choking do? What does choking do? Literally cuts off the oxygen. My oxygen is Moir. The moment you put any emphasis on Oir, you push it, killing it. It doesn't want to hear from you because its Metzias is Moir. That's the power of Oir. That's the beauty of Oir. That's the depth of Oir. What is this in Avodah? We all understand. It's when the person can experience themselves as Oir, it means I'm a channel. And what makes you a powerful channel? The less you exist, the more you're a channel. Everybody knows that. The more my ego is here, the less I'm a channel. The ego takes over. I'm not Oir. The more bittul, the more Oir. The more you're channeling. What's the worst thing that happens is when I take credit, or when I get the credit and I bring it to myself. It's called hijacking. Right? We always talk about Hashem also made Keli. What's Keli? Keli always contains the Oir. It measures it, it limits it, it defines it. In more abstract terms, Oir is the inyan of Ayin and Keli is the inyan of Yesh. Because the source is Ein Sof. Ein Sof is Ayin. What do you mean Ayin? There's no definition, there's no description. And Oir is the first relational experience of that. If Hashem wouldn't make Oir, what would the world look like? We would have no experience of Ein Sof. Because there is Oir, so Oir tells you that really you're Ein Sof. That's what you really are. Oir is responsible for the first awareness of a higher reality. Keli has a different function. What does Keli do? Keli doesn't want Ayin. Keli likes definition. He wants containers. That's the union of keli. And it's not a mistake. This is how the world works. When the ur comes into a keli, now the ur has a definition, a description, and suddenly what happens? There's a yeshus in the ur. What does it mean, a yeshus in the ur? It's contained, and therefore it has already a certain reality. It has an identity, because ayin has no identity. Ayin is pure Ein Sof, pure infinity. So the cha'oire, keli and oire should be at war with each other, you would think, because it's the opposite, right? It's almost like imposing on oire something that oire is like, I'm done with you, and yet the oire somehow comes into a keli. It's a frustration. Exactly. Keli cuts out the main nikud of oire. You know what keli does? It's like, you remember the when they would give you tuna and jelly in the camp, and the kids would take off the jelly? Right? The whole purpose was to eat the sandwich. Keli hijacks from the herb mitzias, and it lets go of the ayin. It's like, right? It suddenly it takes the least significant part of oil, and that's what becomes the mitzias, because that's what it can deal with. That's what we all do. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. This is the structure. Yeah. So this is the union of Eid and Keli. So l'chayda, there's a tremendous frustration here and a tremendous battle between the two. And yet, Eidus and Kalim is the energy upon which all of existence is created. The whole Kabbalah and Chassidus is based on Eidus and Kalim. Everything is based on Eidus and Kalim. What happened in Olam HaToya was the breaking of the Kalim. The Kalim could not deal with reality. The Kalim are like gone, and the Eidus, I'm like done with you, we're done. And that created chaos. And Tikkun means that Eidus and Kalim get along, which is not a simple thing. Eidus the Toyu, Kalim of Tikkun. So now, here, we have three madregas in Bittel. What like we learned in Basi Lagani this year was Basi Lagani Tavshin Chavav, right? The whole reason that there's Eid is because there's desire for a relationship. Eid is the conversation. Eid is the shlichus. Eid is the medium. Eid is the messenger. Eid is the literally, all Eid is communication. It's communication. And whenever there's communication, it's not about the communication. It's I'm communicating with you. I am communicating with you. So Eid is the medium of communication between the Ein Sof and all of reality. Keli is the need to structure that communication in a way that I can make tangible. That's what Keli does. Letting go of the Keli is merging with Eid itself, which is Ein Sof, which is Ayin. It's complete ego death. Keli is a form of ego. Even if it's a high ego, there's a lot of levels of Kalim. But even the highest level of Kalim is some form of structure, some form of vessel. There's me containing you. Eir, the whole mitzias of Eir is there's no I. I don't want a Keli. Eir defies Keli. Eir says I'm not a Keli. Because any Keli is a mitzias. And yet Eir comes into Keli, which he's going to explain how that happens. So now, when we reflect on this, and we take it back to a person's life, it'll be easier to understand how it works here. In the first level of Eir, what is it really saying? It's a message. Eir is a message and says, my mitzias is to reflect my source. That's what it wants to do. That's what I'm here. I exist, but not I exist. I don't exist. The source exists. What about me? I'm channeling. And don't look at me. Don't detach me. Don't start worshiping me. That's when you're in a place of Eir. Yeah. In a person's life, what's the source of all menuchas hanefesh? All real serenity. We always talk about this. All real bliss is what? When we can go out of our kalim, experience the Oid inside of ourselves, which means you're a channel. Let go of ego. And the deeper you can let go of ego, the deeper you're channeling the source. And the deeper you're channeling the source, the more you're in touch with the source. And the more you're in touch with the source, the more you're in touch with the source of love, goodness, bliss, and trust. And the more you feel safe, and the more you're aligned, you're in flow. What does it mean to be in flow? So when he says there's 3 madregas in Oid, he's really talking about 3 states of being in flow. 3 states of light. The first is the Metzius of Oid. Now that itself is very, very powerful. Because what does that mean? That means the moment I could redefine myself as a channel for the source, that's the first inyan of Oid. And that's bittul. That's what bittul looks like. There's no step 2 without step 1. What's then step 2? What's deeper than this? That was his question. He says, deeper than this is Lachoshech. And what this means is, what does this mean? I'm going to say it and then we'll see it inside. It has a little trap to it. There's a trap door to it. It doesn't have an ego. But in its egolessness, it has a different type of ego. What is its ego? Its ego is, I'm a shliach. It's not a regular ego. We're talking the be'emes. It's not a fake thing. It's not a con artist. It's stuck. It could be stuck in the idea that it's light. I am light. And that is my Metzias taka. If it's true, it's very true. It's authentic. It's divine. It's divine. I'm saying divine. I'm not saying ego, dirty, filthy. It's divine. Yeah. That is, its Metzias is that it's bittul. It's ego. It knows thyself. I am light. And that's supposed to be that way. We're not complaining. It's not a protest. I let go of myself. Yeah. I'm channeling.
But the question is if itself is the ego or it's a separate entity.
No. That's what its inyan is. Its inyan is to be Megala the Moyer. Fakert. At the end of the day, it could look at itself and be very proud of itself in a beautiful way. Like, I did my job. I'm channeling. I'm the ray of the sun that channeled the sun. I brought the sun here. Nobody has access to the sun. And not in an arrogant way. We're talking about real Oir. It's not hijacked. But bittul is supposed to be its Metzias. This is not a protest. It's a description of what God made. There's something deeper in Oir. What is it? Because Oir is bottle, so Oir also knows its source that's higher than the Oir. Huh?
Peer-to-peer communication.
Yeah. Real communication is you communicate also that which you can't communicate. Oir, when it's really Oir, it also tells you that it can't really channel. Because whatever it's channeling is just what it could channel through its identity. And because it's a true shliach, so it gives you access not just to itself, it also gives you access to the source which is inaccessible, because it's true Oir. That's the power of bittul. The power of bittul is you're so reflective of source that you become a reflection of the source that which you can't reflect, and you reflect that too. How do you reflect that too? That's the Lachoshech. The Lachoshech is a much deeper level of bittul, because the Lachoshech is pointing to the source that I can't channel through me. But that I also point to. That's also madrege in Oir. This shows you how much alignment. What the Alter Rebbe was trying to bring is how much alignment you're capable of. The second level of Oir is a prat in who you're capable of being. The fact that you can go through an ego death, that's amazing. That's incredible. But even there he says, don't get stuck in that. There's something even deeper where you can let go even of your identity as light. Here comes the light, baby. Lachoshech. He tells you, wait till you meet the Meshaleach. Wait till you meet the one who sent me, and you'll see everything I do is Lachoshech. Wait till you meet that. And that's what he also says. This is also, he's communicating that too. Huh? He's ready to let go of that too. It's not just, I'm channeling, and that's amazing, I'm channeling. I'm also channeling that which I can't channel, because it's not channelable. I just made up a word, sorry. It's not channelable, so it's also a word that I can't say, because I just made it up. It's not channelable. I like my word. It's not communicatable. Thank you, Ur. I'll give you an example of words. Words are Ur. Words are communication, right? But those who know about words know that the real words are supposed to point to that which can't be said. Any Mammar you learn, if you only see what's being said, you didn't learn 99% of it. You remember we learned about the empty space around the ink in the Trefet Torah, in the Mammar B'Shosh Gdimus. Syag l'chachma shtika. What did the Rebbe say? That Chachma always tells you that most of me, I did not tell you. Most of me you can only get in silent. That's why every letter in the Sefer Torah has to have space on all four sides. Kol ois she'enei mukav gvil midalad ruchaiseh. It's a puzzle of Sefer Torah. Why? What if there's a little inconnect? And then you could read the two letters. I understand if you can't read. The answer is because every letter is really a reflection of that which is empty space. And what's being communicated in the letter is just that which the ink can capture. We call it Bein Ashuris. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu's light came from the ink that remained in the quill. So what, Hashem put an extra ink? He didn't make a cheshbon. When Moshe went to Costco, God didn't give him the right amount of ink. He left ink give him the right amount of ink. God has an issue with mathematics, what, he was thrown out of 8th grade? The pshat is, for everything that Moshe wrote, there's that which is in the quill that can't be written. All the science in the world, as much as we study the light of the sun, there's parts of the sun that are not being communicated through the light. The light tells us amazing, but essence it doesn't tell. Atzmus Ein Sof can't come through Ur. So here was a tremendous chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. Most people thought, the real Kabbalists thought, you're right. And that's why Atzmus remains inaccessible. That's what they said, you're right. That's why we only talk about Ur. We never talk about Ein Sof. That was till the Alter Rebbe. And then the Alter Rebbe said, when you really bottle, because Hashem and His Atzmus wanted a relationship with you, so when you really bottle, you're so bottle that you channel even that which you can't channel. That's also in the relational field. That's also an Ur. That's the Lachoshech. That's why it's a higher level. The first level of Ur is the Metzias of Ur. So they say, how are you getting better than that? The second one is just you're not chashav. It's like I told you, in your office, you're a big guy. At home, you're a small guy. That's a much lower level of bittul. So stay in your office. But now he's saying the different vart. The first level is a bittul in your metzias, but it's your metzias' bittul. The second inyan is that the Ur channels that which is not communicatable through Ur. And it's also channeled through Ur. Because the real inyan of Ur is that I am a channel. The words point to that which can't be communicated through the Ur. So through the Ur you learn about the source which which can't be communicated in Ur. And that's the death of the ego, even of the ego of light. Avada. This is all for Avodah. This is just code language. It's all to bring out how deep the oneness could be. It's not just, I'm going to quote again Reb Moshe's words from Basi Lagani, all in. You remember? All in. What does all in mean? There's that which light could communicate. Remember, light channels ayin. But it channels ayin in the way that ayin could be channeled. I could see it. That's what the inyan of Avodah is, that you could see it. It's revelation. The challenge is that the moment is revelation, you can't talk about etzem anymore. So Ur, by definition, even though the whole inyan of Ur is bittul, but it's could channel that which could be channeled. What about that which can't be? So Ur says, sorry, I'm not a shliach for that. So he says, no, a real shliach is the pshat that he's not a metzias. So because he's not a metzias, his whole inyan is the Gili Amayr, so he also channels that nekuda in the Mayr that is completely beyond him. That kufa comes through him.
Or is Ein Sof.
Yeah. The Ur becomes Ein Sof
Or becomes
because of the bittul.
or is Ein Sof. That's
Yeah.
the only place that
Yeah. But what is he megala from Ein Sof? Even that which is not be his galus.
the language doesn't. It's not a separate entity.
You're
What
right.
is that?
You're right. But it's revelation. It's light. We say there's Ein Sof and there's Ur. Why do we say Ur? Because Ur is talking about us. Because the whole inyan of Ur is, that's why I started off, Ur is the relational field. It's all about relation. If there was no relationship, Yitaka didn't need Ur. Ur means that I want to connect with you. But which part of me? All of me. But what do you mean? You're a shliach, you could just channel what you're channeling. Right? You're right. But there's something deeper in shlichus. Mitzad your complete bittul, so you channel that which can't be channeled through you. And that itself becomes your identity. Ooh. So Ur is now doing something else. Not only is it saying, don't look at me, look at the source. Yeah? Because I am just source. You know what Ur is really saying? Don't look at me b'chlal. Don't look at me even as a channel, because I am not telling you the story. Don't even look at me. And then the herb, now it's an ego death. Now you could be in flow. Now you stop lying.
First directing you on the right.
Yeah, always. And the real direction is that he's not even a metzias of bittul. It's not that I'm a metzias of bittul. What do you want to say, Rabbi Avram?
So, or actually transmitting something. So
Yeah.
imagine it's transmitting a story.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the recipient, right, if there is a true bittul, you really cannot, the goal of Lachoshech means you cannot add any chashivus to it.
Yeah.
You cannot add anything. If you're not, so you transform the story into something else. And that's why we have like a, by the time you transmit it multiple times, the story was already not the story, and the message
Yeah.
was already not the message, and everything is completely distorted. So the real bittul means that it can be still transmitted in the original form
Yeah.
without adding anything to
Yeah.
it in a way.
Yeah.
Which is how
How does that happen? The real bittul is that it transmits the original story without any change. But the original story is beyond light. It's beyond being a source for light. So how can light channel that which is beyond being a source for light? If my identity is that I'm a source for light, so you're channeling that. I'm channeling it. That's what I am. But if the source that I'm channeling is beyond being a source for light, so light can't capture that. So you say that's just cut off, that's inaccessible. That's completely inaccessible. And that was the notion until Chassidus, until the Alter Rebbe, that was the notion. Like there's certain parts, so you don't go there. Just don't go there. It's not healthy. It's not true. You're just an arrogant. Like stop it. Like let Atzmos be him, and nobody speaks there. But as Mashiach gets closer, as the Gula is getting closer, the ultimate purpose is coming out. And the ultimate purpose is all, you and me. And the best thing that ever happened to Hashem in his mind is you. I know you don't think of that way. You don't think of yourself that way, but he does. That's the best thing that ever happened to him. The best thing that ever happened to him is you. You're like, whoa. Okay, now, the self-esteem is becoming narcissism. What's the next step? Next step is you're going to be God, right? That's true. That's the third level of Ur. But it's all bittul. It's all bittul. Because the nekuda here is, l'chayred is a part of the source that's completely inaccessible. So what are you channeling here? And the answer is that because Ur is really Ur, the power of Ur is to strip itself from every last level of identity, including the identity that it's light, of being a messenger. So what am I? So that's what he's saying, nirgish by mekaireh, that Oir is giving you a sense of its own source, and over there it's a bittul of kaloi chashev. Kaloi chashev, it loses itself in that. And in that ego death, the Oir, paradoxically, brings out, it channels, it carries, it transports that which l'chayda it can't transport. Because of its complete bittul to its source, so it channels everything of its source. It channels everything. But how does it channel it? How? Not by the way, I'm bigger than you ever thought I am. What does that translate into Lashon of Chassidus? It translates into Kaloi Chashev. Kaloi Chashev means that the Oir says that the whole Metzius of Oir is not Chashev. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, every Kaloi Chashev in Chassidus is healthy. Because you're learning Kaloi Chashev means I'm an idiot, I'm a moron. Kaloi Chashev here means you're atzmos. You're Ein Sof. That's always a healthy Kaloi Chashev. Kaloi Chashev means that there's nothing standing in between me and the source. That's what Kaloi Chashev means. Everything I think that's standing between me and the source, including my ego, including my darkness, including my spiritual ego, is Kaloi Chashev. The Alter Rebbe writes in the Likutei Torah last week, Parshas Maseh, that the higher you go to Ein Sof, the higher you go in Ein Sof, it doesn't mean he's further, it means he's closer. Because the more Kaloi Chashev, the more it means that there's nothing that blocks. Everything that you think blocks is gone. So the last separation between us and Ein Sof is gone. That's what Kaloi Chashev means.
That pushes away Lachoshech.
So that's the second inyan of Oir. There's a third inyan of Oir we're going to see. The third inyan of Oir is a whole other inyan. That's a fusion of the next level. That's where it fulfills its purpose, where it's back in its source, where there's no separation anymore.
What's Torah? Is Torah Ayin or Torah?
This is all through Torah. Torah Oir, everything is through Torah. I want to go mamish 5 minutes, because I just want to learn this inside, and then we'll take a break. וישלום רבי בזה על פי הידוע דאגם שהאיר מעין המויר מכל מקום כיוון שהמויר הוא מובדל מהאיר שהמויר אינו מוכר לו ורק שהוא נמצא ממנו. See, the words are so precise. Even though Oir is me'ein ha'moyer, but since the moyer is completely beyond the Oir, the moyer is not a source for the Oir. It just comes from it. You can't define the moyer, the source, saying this whole inyan is it's a source for light. No. Light comes from it, but that's not its whole identity. So when the Oir reveals the moyer, it's the metzius of the moyer, not its muhus, not its essence. It reveals its reality, but not its core, because its core is beyond being a source for light. So how can light reveal that? But because of the dveikus of Oir in its source, it feels even the essence which can't be revealed through it. That's also felt in it. It's so davak in the source, so it feels, it experiences that which it can't reveal, because it's beyond anything that can be revealed through Oir. It's beyond revelation. So what happens to the Oir? It gets nullified from its metzius. The metzius of Oir hu gilui. The metzius of Oir is revelation. Gilui hamoir. It's revelation of the Oir. V'aydesha nirgish b'isha hamoir muhus hamoir u'lamayla megilui v'sha gilui ein le'erech kaloi chashav l'gabei hamoir hu mizbatel metzius. When the Oir experiences the fact that the moir is higher than gilui, the muhus is higher than gilui, and the gilui has no erech. It's kaloi chashav l'gabei the moir. So what happens to the Oir? It becomes batel. That's the second level of bittul. The Oir itself becomes batel as Oir, because mitzad, it's dveikus in the moyer, it experiences even the muhus of the moyer, meaning the fact that it's beyond Oir, which can't be revealed through it. So, and because its whole mitzias is gilui, when it realizes that the moyer is higher than gilui, and gilui legabe higher than gilui is kaloi chashiv, so the Oir becomes batel from its mitzias, and that is the second level of bittul in Oir. That's what the Oir starts channeling. It's bittul itself. The bittul of the bittul. the bittul of the bittul. Exactly. The bittul itself becomes bottle. Because what's wrong with the first level? Because that is its mitzias. Its mitzias is bittul. That's gilui. I'm a gala the mar. But because the oid is margish, that moed is beyond gilui. How does the oid know that? L'chayda oid doesn't have access to it. So he says, no. Mitzad the bittul of oid, it feels the mucker. So it feels even that the mucker is beyond what it could be revealed. That also is felt in oid. In I don't know if you could say in simple English, if you want to stop using the words Oris and Kalim, it means that the relationship between Hashem and us is such a deep relationship that He wanted us to have everything and to be connected to everything. Right? So the question is, where is the border where the human ceases and the divine begins, and can they ever connect? So in many ways you could say Oid is the interface. Oid is the interface, so to speak. It's the transmitter, right? But what could it transmit? It could transmit only that which is transmittable. Bottleneck, yeah. That which is transmittable. So what's transmittable of Ein Sof? And the answer is, Oid, the light, some form of revelation, right? Some form of experience, however you want to define it. It's beyond most definitions that we can have, but fart, it's Oid. Oid is called light, is something called light. Right? Something gets revealed. And that allows us to experience Ein Sof. It allows us to experience, imagine when you're in a moment of life, you know what it feels like? A moment of life where you don't feel that you have an ego. And you're happy that it's dead. And you're just like, I'm just a channel. In a funny way though, I don't know funny, but in one way, he says that's step one. That's only step one. That's only step one. That's step one in the relationship. And then there's step two and there's step three. And what's step two? Step two is that real bittul means that you're capable, Hashem allowed us the ability to be able to experience the fact that all experiences in the world are not touching the essence that is beyond experience. Or in this language, that Ur feels that the Ma'ir is Lamayla Megilui. The essence of Ma'ir is not the source for Ur. There's Ma'ir that's Lamayla Megilui. And all the Giluyim of Ur have no chshivas legabe that. They're just channeling what could be channeled. And Ur knows that. Ur feels it. Ur channels that itself. So what does it do? It becomes bottle. It becomes bottle even as Ur. And that itself is Ur. That's what real Ur is. So it points not only to the fact that there's a source and it's channeling the source. It points to the fact that it can never channel the source. That itself it points to. And that means that it's really bringing out source itself. It merges with the source. That's what real flow is. There's still a third level in art. There's still a third level. That he goes by, that's the next paragraph. So this is the beginning of the explanation of the three levels, which is all coming to explain, ultimately, what is the Ur that the world discovers that can not only defeat the darkness, but undo the darkness for eternity. Keitz Lachoshech. What is that Ur? Yeah, this is the beginning of the beer. He continues to the third level. Then he redefines all the three levels. And then in Sif Hey, he discusses how these three express themselves in a person's life. What do they look like in Avodah? What are the three Yonim in Avodah? Seichel, Emunah, Mesiras Nefesh. Real Seichel, real Emunah, and real Mesiras Nefesh. I don't mean to be a spoiler, but I just want to show you that everything is going to be reflected in a person's life. What did you want to ask? Oh, I used the word trap. I didn't mean trap literally, but what I meant was that light channels that which light could communicate. I could send a shliach with a message as a messenger for things that he can actually transport, right? But he has to have something that I could transform, something in me that I want to send a message to you, so I give him the letter and I bring him the letter. I give him a message, I say over this message. But how do I communicate through a shliach, yeah? I want to share with somebody my essence. How do I do that through a shliach? Give them my essence. I can give you an idea, I can give you a shlichus, I could say go be mekadesh, give truma, go do this, go do that. But how do you give over your essence to a shliach? You can give him a resume, you can give the shat. How do you give your essence to a shliach? My essence is not something that he could. How do you transport somebody's essence? Right, exactly. He's saying you send a shliach to do kiddushin, right? But the woman should feel the energy of love of the man, like she has to meet him. Huh? Even AI can't do that, right? So light is a beautiful shliach, unbelievable. Not only is such a beautiful shliach, there's no ego. Light says, don't look at me. I don't have a mitzias. Light is ayin, oir is ayin. That's what it's constantly saying. Ayin, 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 ayin. That's really what it's saying. And that's why light doesn't let itself be defined, because it's always pointing to something beyond itself. So that's the foundation of oir. That's why oir is critical in understanding everything, because that's really the purpose. To combine the keli with the oir, not to get stuck in keli, to open the keli to the oir. All bliss in the world is going out of your keli and going into your oir, becoming a channel. How do I know if I'm giving a shir? How do I know it's successful? You know how I know? If I'm not giving the shir. That's the truth.
Certain energy of attraction that happens. Exactly. Attracted to God.
How do we know if we heard it? If we didn't?
It's true. I told you once, a pianist once said, how does he know he's a successful concert? When he's not there. His fingers are just channeling the music. If he's there, they like me, they don't like me. You think it's good? They're gonna. It's human, but he's not an oir. He's not light. You remember we always say Vayiken nagin hamenagin. The Maggid says when the menagin becomes the niggin. A violin is beautiful. You know why? It has no self-consciousness. It doesn't come home and tell the violinist, "You think they liked me? I did my concert. Next." They liked me, they didn't like me. Ich weiß nicht. It's their business. I stay in my lane. I'm a violin. I'm not here to get love from anybody. I'm a violin. When the menagin becomes a niggin, Bati love Yad Hashem. But was krachst du? It's the only work. This is the work. This is all the work. On the other hand, we have Caleb. I have an identity, yeah? Somebody got to pay the bills. The violin doesn't have to pay my bills. We have identity, right? We have egos. We have a keli. Everybody has a contribution, but we want the keli to channel the oir. The keli to contain that. So what is the inyan of oir? The oir is always, I'm channeling. And whenever you channel, you don't become defensive. Why do people become defensive? Why? Because I need to protect something. Oh, you're attacking me. I have to attack you. When I'm channeling, I could listen. I could just channel. So that's oir. That's the nekuda of oir. That's why oir is so fundamental. It's bittul. That's what bittul is. It allows you to become something greater than yourself. But what does that really mean? So that's what he's saying here in a very, very subtle way. One inyan of oir is that its mitzias is bittul. That's the baseline of oir. Its mitzias is bittul. Why? Because the inyan of oir is gilui hamo'ir, not gilui itself. Gilui hamo'ir. What's better than that? What's greater than that? So he says you have to remember something. The ma'ir is not defined by the oir. The source of light its definition is not I'm a source of light. That's not its definition. Light comes from it, but that's not its essence. So what is its essence? I don't know. Its essence is beyond that it's a source of light. If its entire essence was that it's a source of light, so the light is channeling that, the light is telling me about him. The light is the shliach, the light is communicating. Amazing. But the essence of the source is beyond that it's a source. It's not even called source. It's also a source for light. But that which is being conveyed through the light is not even 1% of its true essence. And because light is truly loyal and truly selfless and truly lets go of its ego, so the big chiddush of Eid is that Hashem allowed in the fabric of creation the ability to be able to channel not only that of Ein Sof that can be channeled through Eid, which is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, but it suddenly the Eid experiences the truth that's beyond experience. And it realizes that what I'm channeling, legabe that, is be'ein aroich, it's kaloi chashiv. So the Eid experiences a new level of ego death, even the death of the Eid. So through the light, it's channeling that which is beyond the light. The Mammar, not only the Metzias, he calls it the Metzias HaMammar and the Mahus HaMammar. Metzias HaMammar, you understand the difference. Mahus comes from the word Mahu. Metzias comes from the word Matsui. Metzias is always reality the way we define it. Mahus is the essence. So Metzias HaMammar is, how do I describe God? That's the Metzias of Hashem. That's not the Mahus. Channels Metzias of Ein Sof by saying it's Ein Sof, but that's not the Mahus of Ein Sof. The Mahus of Ein Sof is beyond what can come through and since the feels that, so the becomes bottled even from the Metzias of Yeah.
He commits his entire existence to that which he does not understand.
Yeah. He commits his entire existence to that which he does not understand, comprehend, grasp, and therefore cannot even experience.
In that committing to what he understands, he is bottled.
And in that committing, he goes through his own transformation where becomes not anymore. And that itself is when he says he becomes bottle, it means that itself is has that communication too. There's two frequencies of communication in One is channels that which channels, which is the Ein Sof, the way it could come out through God chooses to reveal whatever could be revealed through Ein Sof. But it has also another channel. Particle and wave, very good. Particle and wave. The particle of essentially is a particle. It's more containable. It's both. It's both, and the wave is more like uninhibited. It's Ein Sof. That's like a secret station of where it's also telling you, not only am I not a Metzias, not only am I not my own Metzias, because my whole Metzias is the Gili of the Mammar, that's true. But now I want to tell you a secret. And that is, even as I'm not a Metzias. That's like a second secret, it says. The first secret I'm telling you is, let go of everything, because our whole Metzias is just the Gili HaMammar. That's number one. You can let go of your ego, you can let it die. Now I'm going to tell you even a deeper secret. And the deeper secret is that even as a Metzias of Gili HaMammar, I don't exist. And that itself, it's channels. So in this, the becomes a channel for the etzem. And that's the alignment that happens in this place of bittul. That's what real flow is. Huh? When I'm using the word being in flow, what I mean is that there's no I outside of it. Like when you're in flow and you're just like channeling, like I said before, his fingers become the music. Like there's no separateness. But when you look at the fingers are channeling music. They are in a most beautiful way, in the most beautiful way.
You'll get stuck on the channel.
What's the difference between Shef and Ner? Why they switch the language to Shef?
The difference of Shefa and Ner that's already a whole other inyan. That Shefa is a Metzias. Okay, we'll take a break here.
How do you know it's not true?
How do you know? You know there's Menuchas HaNefesh. Whenever the ego is out, there's a serenity, there's a joy, always. The nervous system becomes relaxed, it's very safe. Number one. And number two, the people around us who are closest to us benefit most. They will give us the feedback of how relaxed they feel around us. Whenever you see that the people closest to us are on edge and anxious, so usually there's an ego game going on, always. The people around us are always a very good litmus test. Yeah.
Good energy, really good energy.
There's a good energy. Number three, it never contradicts Torah. If my journeys are contradicting Torah and Shulchan Aruch, it's usually also the ego mixed in. So that's number three. Yeah. Be'ezer Hashem will continue Thursday. Yeah. You could try to learn the rest of the Mammar yourself and then do Chazara. They call it a Leinung in yeshiva, right?
That's the one from the first day.
The order of the first day is Orsha Nivra B'Yom
The
Rishon.
fifth day was the clear.
I recorded a few minutes and it gave me a whole picture. I'm wondering.
Oh wow.